Okay, we'll start the meeting. I don't actually think there was too much confusion about whether the meeting was on or not. Town hall was closed during regular business hours, which it probably didn't need to be in retrospect. I didn't get any emails. Jennifer has been in touch with everybody multiple times. Didn't get any emails, and we do have, even though not a lot of representation, we have representation from 7 or 8 property owners here. So we have hired Moyne and Associates. Dan Stevens is up there. He's got his presentation on here. Dan, I'm probably going to turn it over to you very shortly, but this is an effort to just take a look at Mariners Way if you guys want to come up, if you guys want to sit at the table.
Yeah, I'll say we're close. I don't care.
We're all friends and neighbors, right? This is the 3rd time we're doing this. And we felt like a lot had changed since COVID. People are working differently. The housing market has changed significantly. There's not enough of it. It's something we want to encourage, is a little bit more housing in town. This stretch is potentially an area where some housing could be built, possibly. We understand that every piece of property here is privately owned. We're very clear on that. That being said, there are some properties that are unoccupied, underutilized, and quite frankly, represent a blight on this stretch of land. It's not targeted towards any one piece of land. It is targeted toward the stretch that we're designating Mariners Way. Why don't we go around the table? I'm going to call online and we can all introduce ourselves because we do have a small crowd. So we're going to start with Don Broder. Don, just introduce yourself and what piece of property you own.
All right. My name is Don Broder, and the property that I own is 10 Springbrook Road, and it borders Route 1 as well. And I am definitely in favor of Mariners Way and beautifying, this end of town. I think there's a lot of potential. So I definitely support you, Carl, in your efforts to try to enhance our community. My wife and I have been residents of Old Saybrook since 1986. I grew up in the area. Love Old Saybrook.
Yep. Thank you. And I just want to be very clear that, and I appreciate you saying support you, Carl, in the effort, but this has been in fact, I'm probably the least involved in the group. This has been a real group effort with Jennifer and Bruce Charlton and Matt and Chris Costa and Camoin, and I'm obviously in it also, but it's been a lot of work has gone into it already, and I want to thank that group of folks for their efforts. Ben,
yep.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ben Zacks. I'm the owner of 233 Boston Post Road. So that's not variance compliant how the building currently looks, but that's our building on the right of this front photo. And excited to be a part of this and help really figure out how we can develop this stretch further.
Obviously, that's fine. Fettle.
That one, yeah, we're that too.
Well, I mean,
I'm joking, but it's nice to see the faces, and hopefully, it's been a good start and an easy start as a neighbor for everyone so far.
Yeah, great. Tracy?
Hi, so I'm Tracy Larson. I'm sitting with my husband, Eric. I own the business Papercraft Clubhouse, which is 440 Boston Post Road, next door to Wild Birds. I was in business in Westbrook for 13 years. And this is the first time we've owned a building. And really would love to see all the wonderful ideas come to fruition because, I think there's so much potential where we are right now.
Thank you for that. And we'll go around the table now.
Jessica Penfield, owner of Wild Birds Unlimited, next to Tracy and Eric at Papercraft Clubhouse. And exactly what Tracy said, I would love to see some, the area does have great potential, and I would love to see more outdoor activity type businesses in the area as well.
And to my, well, go ahead, Alan.
My name is Alan Hull. I operate B&L Construction. We have a 36-acre parcel next to Glayview that we use for a recycling yard.
Okay.
Steve, leaves me next. Steve Bogan. We own 360 Boston Post Road, which would be the Enterprise Rental Car Building facility.
Okay, thanks, Steve. And Jennifer Donahue is to my left, Economic Development Director. I'm Carl Fortuna. And that up there, Matt Puglisi has joined us, right, Matt?
Yep, I'm here, Matt Puglisi, Board of Selectmen. Nice
Yep.
to be here, everybody.
And then right here we have Dan Stevens, who is from Camoin. He's our consultant. And Dan, I'm just going to kick it over to you, unless Jennifer, do you have anything else you want to add at this point? Dan, go ahead.
Well, great. Nice to, quote unquote, see everyone here this evening. Sorry to be the kind of disembodied voice in the room for those of you that were able to make it out in person. I know I've probably met most of you along the way. So excited to give you all an update on where we are in this process. But really tonight is all about hearing from you, and we're going to go through some exercises to start to shape really what are some of those implementation actions, things that the town can be doing coming out of this initiative that are really going to start to make a difference here. So we'll get into that a little bit. Let me pull up our agenda here. So we do have a little bit of a presentation just to get everyone caught up with where we are in the process, some of the things we've learned, talk a little bit about what that means for kind of the future vision of this district. And then, like I said, we really want to spend some time hearing from you as we get into discussing some ideas around strategies, actions, implementation. So for those of you that may not have been involved with any of our previous meetings or conversations, we'll just kind of get you oriented to what we've been doing, what our mission here is. So you're looking at our kind of official study area, although right, nothing exists in a vacuum, but this is the area that we are primarily focused on, pretty much in alignment with the town's tax increment financing TIF district. So I know Carl touched on this, what is this initiative? And, obviously, there have been previous efforts and we're building off of those. But, we're looking at, the realistic and market supportable development opportunities. So, here we are in 2024, what is realistic today and, not, years ago when the previous studies were done. What are those challenges and obstacles? What do we have to overcome? And, as we start to think about strategies, what are the things that can be done to overcome those? And, as we move it forward into implementation. And really, this initiative is really focused on the implementation piece. There has been a lot of research and analysis, and we'll talk about that. But, we really want to focus on, how do we make things happen? What is the toolkit that the town can use to really start to make a difference, get things, get some momentum building here. So I think I just kind of covered this, the new initiative, not only kind of up to date, market analysis, but, it's that implementation piece. And Camoin on our end, we'll be helping to take those first steps coming out of kind of this strategy development, planning phase. And that's really why we've been calling it an initiative, because it's not just another plan, but it involves some of those first steps towards implementation. So this is what we've been doing and where we are in the process. A lot of that research and analysis, information collection has been going on really since this past summer. And, we're really in kind of the final phase, but, that really critical phase of the strategy development piece, really setting the foundation for, what happens, what are the actions coming out of this. And this is kind of roughly our timeline, a couple months left, and we're focused here in February and into March on the strategy development piece. So I am going kind of quick, but I do want to make sure that we end up with plenty of time for discussion. And if you do have questions, don't forget them, hold on to them. We'll get into the discussion piece and we'll make sure that we're able to address those in a little bit. So one of the things that, is really, kind of one of the, really linchpins of the initiative are these target uses, kind of quote unquote target uses. And so, we've done a lot of research and analysis, the market analysis, understanding, for example, how much housing could be supported here? What types of housing would the market support? Where is the housing need? And so there's a lot of nuance, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But when we talk about target uses, right, it's not just a matter of, what the market can support and what would be great for catalyzing redevelopment. But, we have to really thread this needle in terms of, what's really feasible. And so it's not just a question of the market or financial feasibility, does it pencil out when you build something? But this, community feasibility bubble is another really critical piece of all of this. And so we'll talk a little bit about, some of the things that we heard from the public. But, even if you go back to some of the previous efforts, right, there's been a lot of great visioning work, community input, to understand, the types of uses that are desired here, that would be supported here from that community perspective. And that includes you all as, core stakeholders in what happens here in the district. So we did put out a survey to the community, and maybe some of you saw it and took it. We did have close to 140 responses, and just kind of some of the quick results here may not come as a huge surprise, right? The perception of the district, generally negative, with close to 80% saying either fair or poor. And as Carl mentioned, one of the kind of the driving factors in undertaking this initiative. We asked folks, in your opinion, what are those biggest challenges and issues? Distressed properties was the primary answer, and followed closely by walkability. And I know when we sat down with a lot of you this past fall, those were some themes that you certainly brought to our attention, and we spent a lot of time talking about walkability and safety, and community is kind of echoing a lot of those sentiments as well. And then getting back to, kind of threading that needle of what is feasible from a community perspective, we asked, what are the types of uses that you would like to see? And this is what we heard as part of that survey, with recreational spaces or parks being at the top. But then some, specific business types, restaurants and cafes, marine related businesses, housing, as well as cultural or entertainment venues. So all of this information, along with, the market research, things that we heard from you and other interviews, really informed kind of where we ended up with, those, target uses, that, as we're calling them. And these are those target uses. And I want to be really clear that, when we're talking about target uses, it's really, this is these are the recommended uses that the town focus on to catalyze revitalization. So, to focus on attracting and supporting and so on. But this is certainly not intended to be a list of, the only allowable uses in the district. So I know that's probably a question front and center when you see these uses, and it's these uses plus there's you all have businesses and properties and so on, so these are not intended to kind of be the only 6 things allowed in the future of the district. But when you look at the economic opportunities and market opportunities associated with these uses, it's really, these can really make a difference if we can attract some of these uses to happen here. They can really help spur that revitalization. So we'll talk a little bit about each one and a couple examples of each. I gotta hide some of my Zoom boxes so I can read this. But multifamily housing, and we talk about multifamily housing, that comes in all shapes and forms. Really one of the highest market opportunities just in terms of the demand potential that's out there. A lot of housing need and housing demand that's not being met right now. So see some of the stats. There's a lot of metrics that we look at that kind of go into this kind of analysis. So vacancy rates very, very low, at a level that is kind of indicative of a unhealthy rental market. A lot of demand going unmet, a lot of strong rent growth. And then we do some demand modeling, and we got all kinds of number crunching models that we use. But we found, around 230 rental units over 5 years, kind of that market potential, and, kind of across the income and price point spectrum. So, there's certainly high-end market potential, but there's also a lot of workforce housing need. People that are working in the community can't afford housing. And so, there's really kind of across the board housing opportunity. So what that might look like, as I said, this kind of housing can come in all shapes and forms, but, here are some kind of examples of, what that housing might look like. It doesn't have to look like that. There's certainly other ways that can look, but, these tend to be, kind of housing products that are kind of well aligned with where demand is. So you see some examples of garden apartments, kind of traditional apartment buildings there. Mixed use with apartments over commercial, from a market perspective, this kind of housing and this kind of development is, the market's kind of in that place right now. You see a lot of mixed use development happening. Closely related to multifamily housing, age 55 plus housing. So includes the full spectrum of senior housing, but also, there's overlap with just, multifamily housing for active seniors and empty nesters that just want to downsize into maybe a smaller, more manageable unit. Again, when we did the market research, a lot of demand potential for this type of housing, a lot of that demand going unmet. Again, there could be 30 other images thrown up here for what that kind of housing can look like. Assisted care, there's a full range of senior housing types, nursing homes, and they all kind of have specific specific markets that they meet. Clustered cottages, kind of, accessible, typically are single story living. Just condos, senior apartments. There's kind of, what's called age targeted or age restricted. So you'll see that kind of those age 55 plus communities. So, it's a lot of housing demand, and going back to what Carl said, it's one of the biggest market opportunities, and kind of a focus of this initiative as well. Lodging was something that also stood out doing the market research as a potential opportunity. So, on the right here, you see that big dip in occupancy rates and room rates with COVID, but a strong bounce back, and pretty good occupancy rate levels at 66%, which is decent for the lodging market. And I don't think there's any question that there's a local gap when you look at kind of the current offerings. There's nothing really in that upscale to upper mid-scale range, and there's evidence that there's demand out there if there were a lodging option. So some examples of what we're talking about, upper mid-scale. So you might imagine a Holiday Inn Express as one of the brands that falls into that category. Hilton Garden Inn on the bottom there, kind of one of those upscale class hotels. Another one of those target uses, and this is, kind of actually a number of uses all kind of wrapped into this one, but, the idea that this could be a destination, we found a lot of evidence in the market research that bears that out as a real opportunity. So, just a couple of quick stats on here. You see really strong growth in the restaurant industry, as one of those metrics that we look at. So, strong performance in restaurants. There's strong growth in other destination categories. That first bullet point on top, there's a pretty significant population base within a really reasonable drive time of here, and of course being right off of 95 plays into that. And you see the median income of 106,000, right? We have a wealthy population base, and that means it has a lot of implications for disposable income and spending on dining, entertainment, retail, and those kind of categories. So again, that can take a lot of shapes and form, right? Mixed use retail and restaurants, kind of one, building type and type of uses that can fall into that category. The bottom, you're looking at a destination brewery, kind of a typical poster child for what destination dining entertainment often is. But again, it's not exclusively just these kind of things, but I think the takeaway is really that there's this opportunity for regional attraction. We've got summertime population. We have boaters going to the marinas. There's an opportunity to capitalize on all of that. Health and wellness was kind of an interesting thing that came out of the market analysis as well. And, there's kind of, I would say, kind of two categories within that. Well, I guess that's implied by health and wellness, but, you have the kind of health medical sectors, and, that is actually one of the most significant industries, industrial sectors in the town, close to 1,200 jobs falling in there. So when we look at those kind of metrics, and you see the concentrated, so there's kind of an unusually high cluster of healthcare jobs and businesses, strong growth, all of these things start to paint a picture as that being kind of a strong and competitive sector for Old Saybrook, and something to build on. And when you look at demographic characteristics and aging population and so on, right, there's an expectation that demand's going to continue to grow. And on the wellness side, that's things like fitness, sports, active recreation. When we look at, not only some of these numbers, but, look at, kind of what's available, demographics, kind of the typical consumer profiles of, people that live locally and even regionally. um, there does seem to be an opportunity for new kind of fitness, recreation opportunities. And, some examples on the medical office side, medical office buildings can come in all sizes. So that's an urgent care one on the bottom. Not necessarily talking about urgent care only, but generally those kind of medical office, physicians' offices, outpatient, those kind of things. And then, things like fitness centers and indoor sports, and I would say there's, some crossover potential too when we talk about this being a destination. These kind of sports, recreation things can also play into that destination appeal. And then the last one we wanted to talk about were some of the maritime uses. Right, so we know that obviously this has been talked about a lot. We're, in a branded district as Mariners Way. So we took a look at some of the, data and market information out there. And so you see some of the things here, some interesting data on, from this source called Esri that actually kind of models out, based on consumer characteristics, things like, participation in motorboating. And so when you see, those kind of things, so I guess to read this table for you, because it's probably pretty small. It's close to, 1,150 households just in the local area that, kind of go motorboating at least once a year, and 3,500 at the kind of broader regional level. And so there's a sizable market, and you see there's also been a lot of growth in sectors like boat dealerships, doing well in the market area. And it's a pretty big market in terms of spending on recreational vehicles, things like motorboating. So when we do these kind of things, you can probably tell it's kind of putting together all the puzzle pieces. So there's a lot of data points that we look at, a lot of conversations. So we talked with marina owners and so on. And so, there is potential for, additional marine business development activity in the district, and some kind of examples of, what that may be. Boat dealerships, repair, obviously there's some maritime businesses already. Production, we don't necessarily know that there's a manufacturer that would open in the district, but those are the kind of opportunities that may be out there, that those kind of businesses like to locate in these areas that are kind of close proximity to marinas and boaters and so on. So I know I'm doing a lot of talking. We're going to open it up in just a minute, but I did want to talk through some of these, I would call them draft statements. So, kind of setting the framework, the foundation for how we think about strategies. What is it that we really want to achieve here? So as much as I hate just reading off a slide, I will, because I think it's important, you all to hear these goal statements. So one, enhance the appearance and quality of place of the district in alignment with the community character of Old Saybrook. Maintain, support, and integrate successful existing businesses in the district with future revitalization. So that's one where you all come into play. Infuse new and diverse housing to meet needs and attract new private investment. Talked about housing as an emphasis. Add destination appeal to the district. So we just talked about that as a target use: dining, entertainment, lodging. Cultivate and attract maritime related businesses. focus on meeting community health, fitness, and wellness needs, including integrating complementary community amenities and recreation with new development. And then lastly, improve the district's connectivity or connectedness and walkability while maintaining transportation needs of businesses. And I know that's something that you all emphasized with us in previous conversations. You know, everything around safety, sidewalks, being better connected to downtown, the train station, but also recognizing, right, there's real needs of, you know, trucks to get in and out of certain businesses and those kind of things. And so how do we balance all of those? So now I'm going to take a break for the most part from speaking, and we're going to open this up. We've got a series of discussion topics that are really at a high level and intentionally so. They're not designed to be, you know, hard strategies or draft strategies. They're really kind of, as it says here, topic areas. So keep that in mind at this point. We are, you know, in this process and the big picture scheme of things, you know, we're really just at a transition point. We've really, you know, just completed the research and analysis and are only beginning the strategy development piece. And so that's why we're having this workshop this evening, because we want to hear from you all right off the bat, you know, to start to get some ideas out there. We will talk about next steps, but you know, this is not the end all be all. So we're going to take all of your thoughts, ideas after tonight. We're going to hear from other folks. We're going to synthesize all of those, bring our own ideas to the, you know, into the mix, and start to flesh out what that strategy, kind of what are those actions that the town should take from here. And then you'll have a chance to, again, react to that draft strategy, provide feedback to help us further refine that when we get to that point. So let's see, how are we doing on time? I think we can stick to this about 10 minutes each for each discussion topic. And for the most part, we want to know, you know, do you agree? Are we on the right track? Are we not on the right track? And, you know, what other ideas do you have? You know, have you seen other things in other communities work well? You know, or do you have other things that you think should be considered, you know, the town should think about doing as part of this initiative? Before I do that, any kind of general questions that I can answer at this point?
Don or Tracy, if you have anything, raise your hand. Or I guess we have a small crowd, you can probably just start talking. Go ahead, man.
Okay. So the first one up here, again, right, our high level kind of topic that we want to discuss here, resources and incentives for new and existing businesses and property owners. So there's, you know, the two pieces here, you know, one would be new resources that you all as business owners and property owners could tap into, and then resources and incentives to help attract new businesses to come to the district or developers to do projects that are in alignment with the vision for the district. So there's some examples here, right? This is one of those ones where there's a lot of detail to be worked out. But I am curious to hear from you all, you know, if there were resources available, you know, would you use those? Would you tap into those? You know, would certain resources be more valuable than others, you know, for doing things with your property, you know, to help your business? So let me stop there. Anybody want to offer any thoughts?
Anything? Okay.
Well,
Nothing? Alan, anything in?
the only thing I can bring up is, anybody taken into consideration the new railroad bridge?
So I think we have mentioned it, but in terms of where it's gonna be located?
Although we know where it's gonna be located, but they're gonna need a lot of surrounding land and things of that nature to do some of this construction.
I've looked at that. I don't know that it impacts this area that much.
Well, it's the only piece of land available
Well,
surrounding that bridge in order to do some of a lot of the work is not done on the actual bridge. It brings a lot of construction workers into the area.
so are you, I'm not understanding fully. So are you saying that, they're gonna wanna use some of the properties that currently exist?
Probably, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And they're gonna need a lot of land for laydown areas. There's a lot of materials coming into this
Yeah.
project, and it's a 5-year project
And it's all of a 5-year project.
Yeah. with good going.
Right.
I think I should bring up a point that everybody should hear is, I know what Alan's saying. The economic stimulus that this is gonna bring to the town is something that you have to start thinking about. It's a short-term lived 5-year economic stimulus that really gives trickle down to the town. Because these are all high-paying jobs that are gonna come here, out-of-state people coming. So something besides this, you should be thinking about is how to accommodate that.
How to accommodate that?
Yeah, because it's gonna be something that, it brings a lot of tax base to the town, stimulus to the restaurants, the gas stations, the liquor stores. That's up and above what we're talking about here, but, the town should be open-minded to, there's gonna be some things changing, we think shortly with this whole project.
Yeah.
And, town has to be open-minded.
So when you say open-minded, I think I agree with you. I hadn't really thought about that angle in terms of the construction workers and, even the laydown areas, but, it is a massive project and it is a shit ton of money, to put it bluntly. I mean, I'm not sure, I don't know. I mean, where does that economic opportunity lie? You know, I'm not sure.
Well, it's gonna come to town in the form of monies that people spend.
Yeah,
And it just trickled down to the hardware store, to everyone else in town. But we have to accommodate all that.
yeah. So I guess how would we capitalize for this particular?
I think we're asking the question
Yeah.
right now that everybody's gonna wanna ponder now is, this is gonna be something that is gonna affect the town for a while.
Several hundred employees.
I know. Yeah. No,
They're gonna need lodging,
Yeah.
office space.
Do you know exactly when it's gonna start?
Well, it's gonna start in the next 2 years, I'd say.
Oh, it's this summer.
You think this,
Well, it's up, the bid is March.
yeah, I
20th.
wonder, yeah, I mean.
It's been extended several times, but
I mean, it's federal government. I mean, it's gonna start either like Alan's saying.
it's gonna start slow.
It's imminent. The funding is there.
And it's $1 billion job.
It's massive. Dan, have we discussed that at all? I don't remember.
Not so much in the context of, strategy development. I think, it's an interesting idea. The big construction projects, it's certainly true that there's always, that, influx of spending and, but the challenge is because it is a temporary thing. So how do you capitalize on kind of the short-term impacts? How can that be leveraged to, for more sustainable ongoing revitalization? And, that's the challenging piece, but, it's certainly something we can think about.
I mean, when you start talking about a 5 to 7 year project. Because once they build the bridge, then I was reading how they have to then connect the bridge over the course of 2 different years. So they're gonna build the bridge, then they're gonna connect the bridge 1 year on one side and 1 year on the other side. You wonder if there would be any industries that would be spun off from that, that would want to stay in the area. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, so. But,
Any, oh, go ahead.
it will be interesting. Yeah, okay. Tracy, why don't you go ahead?
Just, listening to this and sort of thinking about it, my concern will be that when this construction is happening, we already have a hard time with people going in and out of the businesses. And I'm on the far end, across from Waterview Landscaping. So I would love for the town to be thinking about traffic patterns if we do get a tremendous influx of construction workers or what have you. We have a lot of vehicles delivering supplies. I mean, it's great that they're going to come to the restaurants, which in the summer are already hard to get to because there's so many people. But I do worry about them sort of gumming up the traffic works. So just something to flag there.
So that's something I can talk to DOT about, because I'm sure the feds are in touch with the state DOT, and I'll be in the middle of those conversations, and that is something I can raise. Anything else?
I think I could speak to that very good question, and this would tie in Alan and probably Steve as well. So the Baldwin Bridge was replaced in the early 90s, and the staging area for that, I believe, was on Alan's property. And we would watch these extended trailers with probably, I don't know, 20 wheels on them or whatever, taking these big precast pieces down to the river. And that project was over maybe 2.5 years. They had to basically build up just like they have to do with the Amtrak corridor. They had to bring in all kinds of fill because the older Baldwin Bridge was north of where the existing one was. So they had to have that, they had to have the traffic continue there while they were building the new one south, which is the similar situation that we have right now with Amtrak. My understanding, the new right-of-way is going to be about 80 feet south of the existing corridor. And it worked fine. There was very little interruption of traffic on Route 1. They did it at non-peak times, and it really went well. I think they ended up being like 7 or 8 months ahead of schedule from when they opened the bridge. So it worked out okay. And I think a lot of the trusses and things, again, Steve and Alan probably better knowledgeable than I, but I think a lot of it is going to be brought in by barge. So you're not going to have these big infrastructure pieces, coming down Route 1, which is what you had with the Baldwin Bridge.
Okay. Has anyone been contacted? I mean, I suppose you don't have to tell me if you have been by the feds about.
Well, I'm involved in bidding specialized work to the project, so I'm involved with looking at other aspects besides, local area real estate issues. I'm looking at doing work on the project with them.
Okay. Dan, you want to pick it up from here?
Yeah. So I think, just to close that out, it sounds like, we can put some thought into, maybe some, whether there's a need for mitigating some of the potential negative impact in the short term, but, maybe there are some interesting ideas about, how we can use that project and kind of that influx of workers and so on to help spur things here. so we've got about maybe 1 minute left on this one. Is there anything that anyone wants to offer in terms of, kind of what resources would be really valuable for you? Are there, business expansion, are folks facing issues with needing to, do any kind of modernization, anything specific that, you might want to put out there that we should be thinking about in terms of, kind of what may, be available in the future?
Yeah, Dan, I have a question on what in the proposed project, is there any kind of a budget for like a walking, sidewalk, lighting, foliage, that type of thing? Because, bringing the public down at this part of town, the loop, and then you have the tie-in, you have the right of way over the Baldwin Bridge. So it's kind of the gateway to Old Lyme. I'm a biker, so obviously, that's of interest to me. But also, as you come around Ferry Road into Essex Road, you're opening up the town. We got to start somewhere. I mean, I've talked to Carl about this for years, and and Matt Pugliese about trying to open up. And I know this is kind of off the rails a little bit, but opening the downtown to the preserve. Elm Street is a very dangerous road for walking and biking, and just starting to get a master plan for the whole town. I know one of the places that my family likes to vacation is up at the Cape, and they have the rail trail, and that thing is so popular. People walking, biking, strollers. It's and having that kind of a concept in Old Saybrook would just be fantastic. And this might be a way to get that started if the money's there.
Well, it might be more of a Carl question, at least on the money front. But in terms of, what we're doing as part of this initiative is really the strategic planning piece of this. And so, coming out of this, we won't have, say a detailed, bike circulation or trail map. But, this is intended to be the launching point for those kind of things. And we'll actually, one of our discussion topics is going to circle back to some of the kind of pedestrian walkability things. So, I guess, the short answer is, there's not going to be construction money at this point, but this is really something that's intended to set up the town to be in position to have that kind of construction money, pursue grants. And so this is really kind of setting the framework for that.
Okay.
Carl, anything that you wanted to add to that?
Only that, and you'll probably get to this a little later, there is a steady income stream coming into the district that will be designated for the district. And that is partly tax increment financing from the zone that we created several years ago. Not a lot of money, but there is money going into that fund every year that we're just saving for a future project, whether it's planning or whether it's actual construction. And then whether we like it or not, hold on one second. Fine Federal came in, and the town receives 3% of gross proceeds from the sales. And one of the allowable uses for that is basically redevelopment of the area, and it can include construction. So it's 6 figures every year that is going to be coming into a designated fund. So Don, what I envision ultimately is having this designated fund, and then we will start building out sidewalks and maybe even a bike ped trail if we can get a desired location that we would be able to do that. As you know, there's a lot of curb cuts on this road, so that makes it very difficult. So,
Yeah.
But when we're talking about this area, I believe there is going to be funding to make it a lot more walkable and to connect it to the train station, which connects to the downtown.
That would be great.
So Tracy and I have been talking, the only thing that we could think of that we'd be doing in the near future for beautification would probably be the parking area. So I don't know if other people along there would be interested in improving their parking, resurfacing.
Yeah, so parking, maybe some landscaping as part of that. Those are the kind of
Yeah.
things that you're looking at.
I mean, we've already, cleaned up the building, painted the building, cleaned up the property, painted.
We got a new roof.
We have a
too.
new roof, so we're a little late for getting any help, but,
Yeah.
Obviously, from my perspective, I'd like to see the town support whoever purchases the Custom Marine property and supports them, because that is an eyesore for all of us that have property on Route 1. It's a real
can we
eyesore.
get an amen?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we've talked about it a lot. We don't want to solely focus on that building, but it is certainly obvious as a poster child for this area, or anyway. Yeah, why don't we move on?
Yeah. So we're gonna move on to the second topic here. And I think this is an interesting one. So a dedicated entity for revitalization, and we'll talk a little bit about what that actually means. But a lot of communities across Connecticut and beyond for that matter, right, set up kind of public, or what you call quasi-public entity, whose sole mission is to revitalize areas just like this one, the district. And so, having a dedicated entity, opens up new opportunities for funding. It increases capacity. And let me share a couple examples, 'cause I think that'll paint a kind of better picture of, what a new entity might look like. So Norwalk's a good example. They've got Norwalk redevelopment has been pretty active, and quasi-public or quasi-governmental, it's got a relationship. It's something that would not be a rogue entity, let's say. It's got a relationship to the town. It's kind of subordinate to the town, and that can occur in different kind of ways. But Norwalk, they're focused on, they get a lot of grants, so they're actively involved with procuring grants from, the state economic development and other sources, do a lot of planning work. But they're out there, they're attracting new development. They're engaged with developers, working in public-private partnership. They'll help with site preparation in some cases. And a couple projects that they've done, on the left side, they got the grant money, they matched it with some local money, and they put in a lot of infrastructure to support this mixed use project as a way to make it happen. On the right, they've been involved with this parking lot project, so they kind of went through the whole process. They did the study, they did the vision, they actually got the brownfield remediation grant and did the remediation work. Then they went to, issue an RFQ, request for qualifications. So, they did a lot of work before they went out and started marketing this to a developer and kind of made it more developable, more attractive. And then they've kind of been involved with that process. So, I think this is a good example of, one of the values of this kind of entity, because there are brownfield properties. We just talked about one, and there's others, and this can be a good mechanism for getting those cleaned up. If there is an entity that can purchase property, do the brownfield work, and then get it all ready for somebody to come in and do a great project. There's some other examples out there. East Haddam, they're really focused on just a specific project, so they were formed as just to focus on a single project. They're a little bit, I guess, behind where you all are. They're still working to establish a TIF district, and that's really what they're focused on. But doing a lot of the planning work, engagement, and so on. And then Manchester has a redevelopment agency that's been pretty active. So all of these redevelopment agencies are really focused on a specific area. And so this is, you see kind of that area that they've been focused on. And, they've been acquiring property, purchasing property, doing the work to get it ready for redevelopment. They've been, doing bonds, putting in infrastructure, and, they've actually secured a master developer, essentially a developer that's going to do a couple different projects within that district. So, just some examples of, what that might look like in a couple of different places. But any general thoughts about that kind of approach? I can't see anybody's face, so help me out. Are there any
Yeah.
nods? Getting
No, hold
nods?
on. We have some, go ahead.
So I feel like a lot of what we're talking about, we have all these good ideas, but it seems like most of these things would probably happen on those brownfield properties, because that's the land that is currently not really available because it's privately owned. But I guess I'm wondering are the owner of all of that property, has anyone had discussions with them? Are they willing to sell the property or get involved in something where the revitalization can be done there?
So it's complicated. I think that's probably an understatement. And I don't want to focus on just that property. Just the customary property, which is about 20 acres. There may be other willing sellers in the area also, so
Okay,
let's not forego that possibility either.
okay.
So there, what I think a little bit of what we're talking about here is that a quasi-public entity could accumulate properties and not all, maybe it's a piece of property, part of this property and part of another piece of property. And, you have an area that is right on the street that someone might be really attracted to, and then other businesses can go in the back. So depending on who would be willing to sell, the agency could step in and perhaps acquire property that way. So it's not just a custom marine property, I would say, and I would suggest that there's probably other properties that you might find willing sellers.
Okay.
And then maybe you don't have as many small pieces, and you can maybe accumulate them into one larger piece and then remediate. So that's just an idea. One of the pitfalls of talking about Mariners Way, I think, is we end up really just saying, the custom marine property, we really don't want to do that. That is certainly part of it's a centerpiece, it's part of the big picture, there's no doubt, but it's a district, and we need to look at all the pieces around it, and perhaps assisting with some other redevelopment might spur redevelopment on that property. That property, just so you know, is, I know Alan and Steve know this all too well, and Don too, I'm sure. The Halleys and the Heinemans, and it's gone to their families, and I think there's a lot of voices involved in what will happen with that property. And that makes it a little bit more complicated.
Okay, but there are other businesses in the area that that might
No,
have indicated that they're
Yes, I
interested?
mean, that's
Okay.
certainly, I think everybody's willing to sell. It depends on how much, right? Uh, I know, Bruce and Matt are out there now too, but, I mean, we have a small crowd here, so any thoughts on this from Don, Tracy, Alan, or Steve? All right,
Hey, Alan, I'd like to support whatever you want to do, because you've got how many acres? You've got what, 26?
36.
36, wow. So, that could be, a game changer, depending on what you wanted to do with the property. So, I mean, that's where I think sometimes go ahead.
No, it's being used at the present time.
Yeah. So using it for excavation or,
A storage recycling yard.
okay. Is there some parts of it though that potentially could be marine use or anything like that?
I do have 6 acres that could be turned into that, yeah.
Yeah, because that would be, I mean, anything that would help. I know the town's looking for, more marine commercial, and there aren't enough slips and docks in the state right now. There's a shortage, so that could be. I know, just sometimes, what happens is as a developer, you're kind of afraid to go to the town because you just, don't know what the reception is going to be. But in this case, this part of town really needs to see some action. And, and Carl, I understand with custom marine piece, it's just that as speaking on behalf of all the property owners on Route 1, it's just hard not to think about it. You go by it every day, but, Alan's got, some additional property that he'd like to potentially develop into marine use. I mean, that would be a good thing.
yeah, so I don't, I mean, this is a public meeting, it's being recorded. There's, the custom marine property has been vacant for, I mean, I think I've been saying 25 years for 10 years. So it might even be longer. And they pay their taxes. However, I know people have approached them, in the past, and, I think they're, I don't know whether they're being realistic or not with regard to their sales price. And, Don, I fully understand that it is a problem piece. Hopefully we can move it along in some way, but hopefully we can move some of the other properties too. So,
Well, and Carl, I know you've tried. I mean, you did the brownfield study. I mean, the town has been proactive, so it's not a criticism. It's
yeah,
just,
no, I know, I know
it's
it's
just-
not. I know it's not.
yeah, it's just, unfortunately, it's so bad, it's not
Yeah.
like it needs a coat of paint, it's just.
No, I know, I'm aware. So,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
anybody else on this dedicated entity? I think, we've talked about it, it's something we're seriously considering to kind of move the ball forward. I think the state would look favorably upon that, for grant purposes and, so, right?
It certainly sounds like a great way to go if you could get some of that work done where the stuff that makes property really undesirable, maybe that can be dealt with ahead of time to make it more desirable for a developer. I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting from it. And that seems really proactive and a great way to start. I mean, I would just
So-
ask, I just
Go
have
ahead,
one
Tracy.
quick question. Yeah. So the first meeting that I went to in person, a lot of what was talked about was how we couldn't do this and we couldn't do that because of wetlands. So I'm on that end, toward Mystic Market. And I'm just curious about the property that's between, I think it's called Old Boston Post Road. So it's my building, and then, kind of Tilton's back there. And there's just this sort of triangle of property. Is that town property? Is that state property?
I don't believe it's town property.
Okay. So
I know where
privately,
Yeah,
and next to Waterview Landscaping, heading towards, again, Mystic Market, is that, I know it's wetlands, but is it, someone own it?
where, I'm sorry, where?
So, Waterview is across the street from me. All that property between Waterview and when you get up to the traffic light at Mystic Market. That wooded property with nothing on it.
I don't know offhand.
Okay.
I think if I'm oriented, right, yeah, I think that's privately owned, and it is heavily impacted by wetlands. There's I think there's a little bit of development potential right up against the highway. Again, if I'm thinking of the right parcel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Dan?
All right. We're gonna move on to number 3 here, which definitely pertains to all of you. So, one of the things that is really important on the implementation side, right, is that, you all are involved, have a voice. So it's really, this is really all about setting up kind of that framework for a partnership, an ongoing partnership between, those of you that have businesses, own property in the district, and the town, and, potentially this other entity. But what does your involvement look like moving forward? And, we certainly recommend that there is kind of that formalization of involvement, and that, you're at the table, and, there's the regular conversation with, your town leaders, and so on. So I wanted to hear what you all think about this, and, if you have thoughts about, how you would like to be involved, how you see that kind of ongoing discussion and involvement, what you maybe would prefer for that type of involvement. So I'll leave it open-ended at that.
So this would be an organization that would be formal, so it would be an association that would be, a voice for the district, to advocate for the district to the town as things move forward. So that is something that Camoin brought to the table that we thought might be important as probably as this gains a little steam. We don't have a lot of people here, Dan. I don't know if folks want to jump in if they think if it's a good idea or a bad idea. But just to give the district a voice, an independent voice, to the town and maybe even to the entity that the town would create.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. I think, yeah, let's put everybody on the spot. Carl, if you want to call on people in the room, I would like to hear, it can just be, generally, yes, you like this idea, or if you have other, thoughts about this, please, we definitely want to hear them.
Tracy, your hand is perennially up, so I'm gonna call on you. You haven't lowered it, so I'm gonna keep calling.
As you can tell, I was open for the entire pandemic, so I'm not as Zoom worthy as the rest of you. Yeah, I think I like the idea of a formal association, but in part because for me, part of doing business is knowing my neighbors and knowing adjacent property owners and knowing people who even aren't adjacent but are who are in town. And I think it strengthens our position in Mariner's Way, even just to know each other better and work together as a voice and then reach out into the town. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe you all are have networked more than I have, having only been in Old Saybrook for a year now, but you know, I think it's really important that we know each other's names, and it feels very Route 1, where we are right now, feels very disjointed. Like I'm not sure I would feel comfortable just waltzing into, you know, some of the other businesses and just sort of introducing myself. But on some level, I think having some sort of formal association that meets might be kind of the answer to that, so that we know what each other's needs are.
Hey, it's a great point.
Yeah, thanks,
Dan,
Tracy.
is
Thanks
this
for going
like-
first. Yeah, go ahead.
Dan, is this kind of like what you were talking about down in Norwalk?
It's a little bit different. So Norwalk would really be kind of a formal agency that has, you know, special redevelopment powers and mission. This would really be a group of you all. So, you know, one way that that might play out, you know, you all might have an organization, let's say a Mariners Way association, business association, right? And you might be an advisory group to that entity. So you might have a liaison, you know, a point person that, you know, is in more regular contact. And, you know, you as an association are, you know, to Tracy's point, you know, you can have networking events and, you know, kind of similar to like a mini chamber, if you will. But I think, you know, I think it's kind of the advisory and the liaison piece that's really critical in what we're talking about here. So, you know, this group wouldn't have, you know, the powers to, you know, issue bonds, for example, but you would be kind of an important voice, an influential voice in what happens.
I like the idea.
Yeah. Okay, Dan, we're losing people, so.
All right. Are they going out the door, or we need some coffee in there?
No, they're going.
Uh-oh. All right. We are aiming to wrap up by 7:30, so we're not going to keep you all night. We're almost to the end here. We did want to talk about traffic and walkability because it was one of the themes that came out of our conversations with you. We know it's an important issue and challenge. One of the things we haven't talked about is the Thrive initiative, which is another separate but related initiative. And I won't get quite into the full weeds on that one, but it is going to follow closely on the heels of what we're doing here, and actually a little bit of overlap. And so that's potentially going to be likely to be looking at the Mariners Way district just through a little bit of a different lens, but that lens will be a little bit more on the, you know, hey, we need crosswalks right here and, you know, a turn lane right here. And, you know, we need to maintain the turning radius for trucks and this kind of thing. Potentially, I think, and that's also going to be looking at wastewater feasibility, whether that's a potential here. So there's a lot of things that initiative is going to take a closer look at that we're not as part of this kind of economic development lens. But you know, there's a lot of overlap, obviously. But anyway, all that is to say is, you know, for this initiative, you know, I think, you know, kind of going back to some of my previous comments, right? We want to set the framework for this kind of activity to happen. So, you know, reiterating the case that this is a problem, we need to make changes, and you know, a lot of that's going to have to, be involved with DOT. This is, the state right of way. And so that has a lot of implications. And they've got obviously a lot of control. So, this needs to kind of set the path forwards for how those changes, have to come about, who has to be involved, versus it's a crosswalk here and not there, which is an important piece. It's just kind of a follow-up piece. So I did want to, bring that up because, I'm sensitive to the fact that, that was one of our big kind of conversation topics and, certainly needs to be addressed. And that's kind of how we're intending to address it as part of this initiative. But to the extent that there are, really specific things that we want to point out, for kind of these follow-up initiatives, I think those are also things that we want to know, right? And we know some of them, right? The connectivity to the train station, huge issue, huge challenge that, we need to call out. We're not going to necessarily solve kind of the design of what that connectivity would look like, but, setting the stage. So with that being said, does anyone want to offer any thoughts about even more broadly, how we address traffic and walkability, in this kind of structure of an economic development plan?
Yeah, I think I can. So we have a family, we're involved in a family charity that it's a marathon walk. It starts at Saybrook Point, ends in Harkness. So I've walked from Saybrook Point to Harkness. I think last year was 17th year or whatever. And walking along Route 1, it's not fun. You're on the road, cars are whizzing by you at 35 to 45 miles an hour. So anything that can get the pedestrians, off the road. I like the, what you're proposing there with the trees and, getting the sidewalks off the road, would be a very positive thing. Cause it's dangerous walking that road, actually. It really is. So
Just for everybody's edification here, I bet Tracy, I'm forgetting your name. Jessica, probably don't know what a cog is. I'm guessing a river cog. Do you know what that is?
I do not.
So the river cog is an organization of 17 towns, and essentially one of its core functions is to serve as the recipient of federal funding for transportation projects in the area. And there are about, I want to say 9 statewide, 9 COGs. They're called Councils of Government. And our Council of Government that we belong to is called River COG. And they applied for and received a Thrive grant, which is a particular type of grant. I don't know the details of what it is, but we feel that we can piggyback on it because do you know what the Thrive grant in a nutshell is?
It's a transportation grant, and it focuses on transit-oriented development areas. So we're partnering with several of the other communities like Westbrook and Clinton that have train stations, and they're studying the surrounding areas for potential development and improvements to connect those TOD areas together.
Great. So, hopefully piggybacking on some of that funding, putting in some of our ideas. In addition, years ago, when we were first looking at this area of Route 1, or the Mariners Way District as we termed it, we looked at putting the road on Route 1 on what they call a road diet. So shrinking maybe 4 lanes or shrinking the right of way where cars travel, and that would give a lot more room off the area of travel for bikers or walkers. So shrinking the roadway, it's a huge right of way out there. It's one of the, I don't remember what it is. It's at least 75 feet that the state owns from end to end. It might be bigger, but I think it's 75 feet as I recall. So there's plenty of room to allow for lanes of travel, but also to perhaps either put in a center median and as well as maybe a sidewalk that, as Don was saying, is off the road. So, you know, that's the type of thing that you get someone in to design, and you know, we'll look at that. So, Dan,
That
okay,
provides not just for other modes of safer transportation, but it usually has a traffic calming effect,
right.
which maybe would slow down, the cars and make that feel safer also.
So Carl, are you saying that my question was going to be, is the land already there that some of this can be done on?
Yes.
It's not like we have to widen.
Absolutely not.
Okay,
No.
okay.
So the state right of way probably goes beyond the pavement, it goes into the grassy area.
I know, where we're located, we were told that it was 40 feet in from where the road currently
And
is.
that's what I'm saying.
A lot of
It's a
space.
huge right of way. So there's areas, there's room there for very wide sidewalks.
And maybe, you know, a sidewalk and then maybe just a little walk path or bike path alongside of it.
Yeah, the only, you know, with regard to walking and biking out there, I don't wanna, there would be a lot of planning work that would have to go on. There's a lot of curb cuts. So when you're biking, you don't wanna constantly be looking at driveways as you're going by, and there's a lot of that.
Mhm.
Walking is a little bit easier when it comes to that, so if there's a way to shrink the amount of curb cuts, that would be helpful, but every business owner wants a curb cut, right? So that's a difficult thing to do unless you consolidate properties
Mm,
and maybe shrink it down. Here's an entrance for these 10 businesses.
okay.
Then it's a lot easier to have a walk and a bike path, right? Or a bike path. Dan, I've talked too much up there, so.
No, I appreciate it. I think that was an important discussion and clarification too. So thanks, Carl.
And-
All right, we're down to our last 5 minutes or so. So this is really kind of a chance for us to cover anything that you feel we missed. If you have any lingering questions, if you have other ideas for things that you think we should explore as, you know, implementation actions, things that the town should be doing, floor is yours.
Yeah, I just would like to say, just finishing, just a comment on what Carl said. Something like that, we need a game changer here. That would be a game changer. And if that's something that is feasible through grants, and we have the right of way, that would really, you know, that would begin the start of the vision of Marina Way. It really would. That would be fantastic.
I agree with that.
Yeah, thanks, Don. And some agreement there.
Any other thoughts that folks have? I know we have a pretty small crowd, but
I know that this is all being looked
keep
at.
your voice up.
So I know that Dan's organization is looking at all this and doing this research and this study, but is there anything that the town is currently doing as we're waiting for this? Are there any?
This is what we're doing. We're spending $85,000 on a consultant to help us begin to implement and give us, you know, guide us forward so that we can implement and not just have a plan that's gonna go in Jennifer's office for people to look at in 5 years.
Mhm.
So this is what we're doing. This is the first step.
Okay.
And, you know, for those of you who are here, we're really grateful for it. This has been recorded. So if you do run into other business people in the community, you know, this will be posted have them watch it, if they want to send us their comments.
Right.
Or if you think of other things after this, there was a lot to digest here. We really would love to hear your input. We're actively trying to finish up the strategy, and your voice is obviously very important, and your other business owners in the area. Okay.
All right,
Yeah, thank you. I'll just add my thanks. Appreciate everyone taking the time this evening.
Yeah, thank
Don,
you.
did you? Yeah, thank you, Don.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, unless anybody's raising their hand, so someone named Best, we're allowing you to talk.
Hi, can you hear me? This is JT.
Hey, JT, how are you?
Good. Sorry, I literally got on the last 5 minutes. We had a bad car crash in Westbrook that took a while. So I missed everything but the last 5 minutes. Can you email me what I missed so I can get caught up to speed?
Well, the whole meeting, we can email you the slide deck, and the whole meeting has been recorded.
That's awesome. Yeah, if you could, I don't know, will it be on the YouTube channel?
Probably, yeah, Larry, I'm sure Larry will put it up there, yes. I'm gonna say
Okay,
yes.
great. Perfect. I'll catch it all there then.
All right, thanks, JT.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, so if there's, no, that, I think that's JT with the guest.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else? All right, so we're gonna close this down. Dan, any final comments?
No, let's see. I think you pretty much covered it. Just a reminder that, we from here we'll develop that more detailed draft. And then you'll have a chance to review that a little bit further down the line.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you all.
Is there,
Thank you.
one more question. Is there a next meeting already planned or?
No, not right now, Larry,
So we'll get notified.
but it'll be soon.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna end the meeting right now, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, bye.